everyone. This is the Jeff Cowan coming to you from Jeff Cowan's Pro Talk. Welcome back to my podcast called Write Service, Write Your Own Paycheck, because that's what I'm going to show you how to do. Now, listen, if you want to learn how to get to Jeff Cowan's Pro Talk, you want to go to the website. You can find it at automotiveservicetraining.com. Again, at automotiveservicetraining.com. You can also go to my other site called thejeffcowan.com. If you've not been to those sites, you need to get to those sites. How can you know anything if you're not in the know? And the way you get in the know is you go to those websites, because that's where I have a ton of information. Well, listen, got a great podcast for you here today, and we're just going to jump into it. And it's going to revolve around this next story. You know, recently I was sitting in my home office, because I've got one there in addition to the one outside the house, but I've got this home office, and I just love working there. It's a nice office and the whole thing, but as I was sitting there in the office working, I looked around and noticed that the paint on the walls was pretty dated. You know, it was worn out. It hadn't been painted in several years. It was chipped, it was nicked, it was faded on some different places, and I mean, it didn't look bad, but it certainly didn't look great. And so, since the office is placed in a house where when we have company over, quite a few people can look in and see it, I think it's important that it look really nice and sharp. Now, I painted it several years before that. I had it painted several years before then, and although they did a great job, I didn't like how long it took. I mean, it took 5 days to get this one room painted, because I had to take everything out one day. They painted it the next 3 days, and I had to put everything back, and I didn't want to do that, and I didn't really want to spend the money. And so I, thinking back over time, said, you know, I've painted before, so why can't I do it? So I get in my mind that I'm going to paint this room. So I get my car, I go to Lowe's, I pick out the colors, pick out the paint, bring it back home, and then when I start to look at what I've embarked on, I realized it was really overwhelming, because now not only did I have to take everything out of the room, but I had to prep the room, I had to paint the room, and so the paint set for a few months. Finally, my wife comes over and gently nudges me, I'll be nice here, suggests that maybe I should start moving on this, because now that I've brought it to her attention, it does look bad and she wants it done. Now, crushed for time, because when we crush for time, the next thing is, well, you know what, I'm not going to let it take me 5 days. How hard can it be? And so the next thing I did is I rushed it. And when I rushed it, I screwed it up. The paint wasn't even. I tried to hang things up when it weren't dry, so I got paint all over the back of these paintings that I have, and I got paint on the wall and the whole thing, and I rushed it and got nothing. So finally, I just threw my hands up and stopped. Let it sit that way for a couple of weeks, and my wife walks in and she says, look, we got to get this done. I throw my hands up and say, I don't care. You just do whatever you got to do to get it done. And so we ended up hiring the painters. It took 5 days. All right. So my point is what I should have realized going in is that you can't rush what you need to have done. So what's this got to do with writing service? Well, a gentleman by the name of Terry wrote in and asked a question that several of you have been asking, but the way he asked it, I want to credit him. He's from Wisconsin, works at a Chevrolet store. Is because here's what he said. He said, look, you know, I'm a big believer in training. I've invested in training. I've sent my people to training. And what happens is we get all this information, and I really never know how to implement it. So what's the best way to implement training? Well, the secret to implementing it and being successful with it, which is what he's asking there, is this. Because I know what happens. Here's what's happened to Terry. I've seen it happen to a lot of people. You go to a workshop, for example, right? And you get all this information, and you get back to your service department, and your boss says, what did you think? And you say, man, this was some great stuff. You think you can use this? I know I can use this. You think it's going to make us better? I know it's going to make us better. You think it's going to finally help us maximize the opportunity? I know this is going to work, and this is great. Well, I can't wait for you to get started. And you take all the information you just got, you sit down at your desk, and you do exactly what I did. You look at all the information, and you're overwhelmed. Where do you start? How do you make it happen? And so you put it on the back shelf, and then maybe 2 or 3 months pass, and your boss comes over and says, hey, I've seen no movement in the numbers. How's the training going? And now kind of feeling like you're in a pinch, then you try to rush the training, and nobody really understands it, nobody really gets it, nobody buys in, and so you don't get the numbers, and so you throw your hands up and you say, you know what, just here's the training, guys, watch it, get what you can. Same thing as the room. And so what you got to learn is the same thing I learned when it came to painting this room. You can't rush the process. It takes time. So I'm going to introduce to you a system called just that, the no rush system, on how to implement any training program you have, whether it's yours, one that you've gotten from maybe a factory, a vendor, or maybe it's even mine. But before I do that, I got to mention this book here called Write Service and Write Your Own Paycheck. Because if you're a service advisor today and you're not making at least $65,000, because that's what the average service advisor makes today writing service, you need this book. If you want to learn how to make six figures, that's right, six figures, $100,000 a year, because 20% of the people writing service right now in the United States of America are making $100,000 or more. Get this book. I'm going to show you how. And you know what? I've also got a companion video series that goes with it that's 10 hours long, and man, and it goes step by step. It includes testing, it has coaching from me, and the whole thing. It's, if you really want to be the best you can be, it's right here. How you get the books is either go to automotiveservicetraining.com, you can order it there, or go to amazon.com, or go to thejeffcowan.com, and you can get the books there. Now, some of you wrote in and said Amazon was out last week, they're restocked. I just called them before I started recording, they got them back in stock. When it comes to video, you need to get that from us. Now, if you want some more hands-on training, then check this out. I myself, D. Jeff Cowan, are going to be doing 3 workshops for service advisors in Chicago, Houston, and in Washington, D.C., and you got to go to one of these. I mean, you want to be the best you can be, come to one of my workshops. I'm going to show you. It's called the 6-Step Road to Service Department Success, and in that workshop, I'm going to show you how to get the maximum amount of sales. If you're not at least at 2.5 hours per repair order, I will show you how to do it, and do it fast. The average person that comes to one of my workshops increases 5/10 upon the return back to their service drive. I'll show you how to get perfect survey scores. I will show you how to get your customer retention well above 80% within 9 months. Now, if you want to get signed up for one of these, go to automotiveservicetraining.com, automotiveservicetraining.com. Just, you can sign yourself up, give the credit card, you're ready to go. Or you can dial 1-800-248-2931, 1-800-248-2931, and anybody that picks up that phone can get you registered. And you want to get registered because these are starting to sell out. Chicago is real close to selling out. One more note, if you're an individual and your boss doesn't want to send you to the class, but you want to go, well, if you spend your own money, meaning you give me your personal credit card, or you're going to write your own check, send your own cash, money will not keep us apart. I will make you a special deal. I love people who take initiative. But back to this. So how do you implement training? Well, the first thing is you got to understand there's no rush. You cannot rush installing new training processes and techniques if you want your people to be successful. Again, there's no rush, no rush, no rush, no rush. That's the name of the system I developed. I mean, let's look at it. You plan on being at your service drive 6 months from now, right? You plan on being there a year from now, 2 years from now. So it's not a question of whether or not how fast you get there that's going to make the difference. The question is that and the answer is that you eventually get there. And the way you get there is there's no rush. So let me show you how this works. When it comes to helping customers on service drives, there's basically 4 areas, and I will list them here very quickly for you. The first area is getting them scheduled. Now, that may or may not require that you get them on the phone and you get them set up and you schedule their check-in time, and then when they get there, you've got a series of steps to do to support what you talked about on the phone. So getting them scheduled, that's one area of the write-up, okay? The second area is the initial write-up. And the initial write-up would include greeting the customer, asking diagnostic questions, walking around the car, the initial write-up, setting them up for expectations, their expectations alike. So the initial write-up. The third part would be getting the vehicle through the shop. Once you get it in the shop, how do you follow up with the customer? How do you follow up with the technicians? How do you do all those different things? That's the third part. And then the fourth and final part is delivering the vehicle back to the customer and then following up on them. So there's 4 different areas. So what we got to do is we got to break this down, because if you throw all these areas and all these processes at your people, they're never going to be good at any one of them. So what I would do is I would start with the part that you think is going to be most important. And so for me to give you, if you want to start with one and go through the list, you can, but I'm going to start with one that's a little bit easier for me to describe how to do that. So let's say, because a lot of people start here, they'll go back and they'll say, you know what, we're already good at getting the customer scheduled and getting them in. We know how to do that. So let's just forget about that because we're good at that. Let's jump into number 2, the initial write-up. So we're going to focus just on that, getting them scheduled, getting the car through the shop, and delivery we don't care about right now, because we're just going to focus on, for the next 30 days, okay, for the next 30 days and eventually 60 days, I'll come back to that in a second, on the initial write-up. So we're going to break that down. So now that we've decided what area we're going to work on, number 2, the initial write-up, now we need to take the initial write-up and break down your process. So your process might be 8 steps like this. It could be number 1, greet the customer. Number 2, asking the right diagnostic questions the right way. Number 3, reassuring the customer they're in the right place. Number 4, walking around the vehicle, which has several steps, turning on the lights, looking at the tires, popping the hood. The 5th thing would be how to point things out and present it to the customer. Number 6 might be closing the sale. Number 7 would be handling the objections. And then number 8 would be setting the customer's expectations as the car goes through the shop and you eventually deliver it back. Okay, so we got those 8 steps. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to get together with your people and you're going to have a meeting and you're going to say something along the lines of this. Look, I've never walked into a meeting holding my head low because of the numbers you produce. For the opportunity we've given you and the tools we've given you in which to execute that opportunity, we feel you've done the absolute best you can do. But reading like I do and going to meetings like I do, I know there's a lot of places out there, a lot of service drives that do better than us. They sell more, they have better survey scores, they have higher customer retention, and I know we can get it too. I know the only thing keeping us from doing that is having the right tools. So I did my homework, I went out and I found a new process, and we're going to start working on it tonight. And so this new process we're going to work on has 4 different areas: getting the customer scheduled, the initial write-up, working the vehicle through the shop, and then the delivery. We're going to start out with the initial write-up because we're very good with getting the customer scheduled. The initial write-up, as I see it, you're talking to your employees here, have 8 different areas. And again, you tell them what those areas are: greet, diagnose, reassure, walk, present the customer, close the sale, handle the objections, expectations. So, to make sure you fully understand that we all get buy-in and we see this going to work for us, tomorrow morning I want to work on just the first step, and that is the meet and greet. I'm going to spend the next several minutes explaining to you how I want the customers meted and greeted so we can get the maximum results. And then once you see what it is, tomorrow morning when you come in, that's what I want you to focus on. Do everything everything else the way you normally do, but we're going to focus on the meet and greet. So the next morning you go in, that's all you're focused on. At the end of the day, the second most important step in this no rush is you're going to have a quick 10-minute meeting at the end of the day with your advisors, and you're going to ask them, how did the meet and greet go? Assuming everybody got it down and everybody's in, you congratulate them and you tell them, okay, now that you have that down, what we're going to do tomorrow is I want you to continue to do that, but now we're going to start working on diagnostic questions. Here's the questions that need to be asked, and here's how I believe they need to be asked. And so you're going to explain that to them, and then the next morning you're going to go out and you're going to do the same thing. At the end of the day, you have another meeting. Now, diagnostic questions is a pretty detailed area, so don't be surprised if at the end of that second day, not everybody has it down to your level and your expectations. So it's okay if you spend 2 or 3, 4 days or more on any one of these points. Why? Because there's no rush. It's not a matter of you getting there that's going to make the difference, or how fast you get there. It's that you eventually get there. So you continue to do that. Watch them with the meet and greet, the diagnostic questions, have your meeting at the end of the day. When you finally believe everybody's got those 2 steps down, then you introduce the 3rd step, and you do the same thing. And then the 4th step, the walk around, and then the 5th step, and the 6th step, the 7th step, and the 8th step. Okay, now this is probably going to take you the better part of 4 or 5 weeks, 30 calendar days, maybe 35, 37 calendar days, and that's okay. You want to know why? There's no rush. But what you're going to find by taking your time is not only is everybody going to be able to do it, but they're going to understand it, and they're going to see the immediate benefits of what you're putting in place, and the buy-in will be just like that because the results will be just like that, assuming you've got a good training program. The 3rd part, because remember the first step is that we got to break down the area, then we've got to break down the area that we're in, and then we got to take it step by step. At the end of each day, we're going to have a meeting. The next and final step in this area is you take the next 30 days, the next 30 calendar days, and you focus just on what you just installed. Don't worry about the other sections yet. Yes, they may be important. Yes, you may need work there, but don't worry about that because until they have this down, it doesn't make any difference because, again, remember, there's no rush. Once you get through that second 30 days, now it's been 60, 65 days, then you go back to the initial list, the 4 things, getting them scheduled, the initial write-up, getting the vehicle through the shop, number 3, the delivery and follow-up, and then you work on them in the same manner. Now, some of these may take you 2 months like this one did. Some of those may take you a month. Some may take more. And here's the pushback I get. Jeff, boy, we do that. We're talking this could be easily 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, maybe a year, depending on the skill of my staff before I get this training and this process fully implemented. And you know what? I know that. And you know what? It's okay. You know why? There's no rush. There's no rush. Over half of you doing this will take up to 8 or 9 months to get this taken care of. 10%, it may take you 12 months. But the bulk of you are going to find within 6 months, you'd be able to get a process like this set up. Again, there's no rush. So if you're into training, and you should be, you want to get the maximum results, and you should. You want to have the highest survey scores. You want to have perfect survey scores. You want to have the highest customer retention. You want to get the maximum sales, and you're going to introduce new tools to your people. You have to understand there's no rush. step by step by step by step. Again, I'm repeating myself. It's not a question of how fast you get there, it's that you get there. That's how you properly implement new processes, properly implement new training. And as a matter of fact, this no rush system in my workshops, to go back to doing a quick commercial, I introduce this in much more detail in my workshops. You need to come to them, man. We talk about everything there. You're going to love this. I'm going to get your people motivated. I'm going to make them believe that being a service advisor is the absolute best thing in the world they can do, because it is. All right? So, hey, this is the Jeff Cowan coming to you from Jeff Cowan's Pro Talk, and my podcast called Right Service, Write Your Own Paycheck, which is what I want you to do. I want all of you watching this making at least 6 figures. Be one of those 20%. When you get right service, you can be there. Why not maximize the opportunity to make the most you can? But between now and next week, before we come back with another great message, I want you to go out. I want you to have fun. I want you to sell. I want you to sell. I want you to sell. I want you to make money. I want you to make commissions and live the life that you deserve, because you do deserve it. So, with that, have a great day, and I'll talk to you next week. Take care, everybody.